you, Michael. Well, welcome again. Is this on? Good morning. Welcome, members, friends, and visitors to the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River. We come together as an intentional community, gathered around our mission to support each other's individual spiritual journeys and to inspire, inform, and support all who seek a more equal and just community. And we are so pleased that all of you are here this morning. And our board president, MQ Riding, is just going to say a couple of words here this morning.
Thank you, Nancy. I didn't prepare anything, as you all probably expected. I just wanted to say to you how wonderful it is to see all your faces in this sanctuary. And I came a little early today just to, bring some food and talk to people. And it was wonderful just reconnecting with some folks I haven't seen all through the summer. So let's just think about this Ingathering as a new start for the year. And another thing I'd like to say is welcome to Reverend Catherine. It's wonderful to have you here. And so let's all enjoy what is going to be transpiring throughout our church year. Thanks.
Thanks, MQ. So I'm Nancy Holland, your service leader this morning. I'll be joined by Connie Schroth. And of course, I am also very pleased and excited to welcome our new minister, Reverend Catherine Adams, this morning. And we're grateful to have Michael Casey again this year at the piano. Our wonderful tech team sitting in back today, David and Deb, Darlene, our administrator, and the volunteers, as noted in your order of service, who make this and every Sunday possible. We are very grateful for you all. So as many of you know, although we do have a lot of new faces this year, the first Sunday after Labor Day is traditionally at UUCR and in many UU churches across the country, the Ingathering service, a time to regather after summer when some of us may have not been in the area or been coming to the discussions, a time to recommit to this community of faith as we return to formal worship. Now, ingathering, regathering, that implies having a place to come back to, which necessitates a beginning, as we heard at one of our discussions. Everything in existence must have a beginning. The origin story of UUCR is known to many of you, but maybe not to some of our newer members and friends. So it began in 1991 with Pat Bjorky, who's still a member, and Leslie Roche, who has moved on, two moms, one Protestant, one Jewish, looking for a religious home for themselves and their children, a place where they could express their own beliefs authentically. Having learned of Unitarian Universalism independently, they met and jointly agreed to start a congregation in Kent County. With the help of Reverend Dan Higgins from the Easton UU Church, who put them in touch with Mariana and Steve Hitchner and Peter Tapke, a professor at Washington College, the planning for this really took off. And a community information service was held in with a UUA district leader in attendance. There was a really good turnout and showing that there was interest, and the first worship service was held September 27th, 1992. And we're September 8th, so we're almost 32 years from that first time. And then in June, the Unitarian Universalist Association accepted our application to become a member congregation. And the rest, as they say, is history. And there's much more to the history, of course. I think one of the other big milestones in this congregation was building this building and acquiring the land, which was purchased in 2004, thanks very much to a very generous gift by the late Peter Tapke. And in October of 2005, we had a ceremonial blessing of this land by Chief Sewell Winterhawk Fitzhugh of the Nasu Wawash tribe, which are the remnants of the Nanakoke and Choptank tribes that inhabited the Eastern Shore. And we began our first formal services in this building in 2006. There is a lot more history, and I urge you to check the website for that, because it's pretty interesting. But this morning, so that's sort of the origins, quick thumbnail. But each of us has an origin story, how we came to be here. Mine was because I was invited by a friend to bring a friend to church Sunday when the UUs were meeting back at the Friends Meeting House. My friend Terry came when she moved here because of me and because UUCR was in need of a treasurer, and she was willing to take on that position. Mark Hanshu came because he promised to go to church if his cat came home, and the cat did. And Mark came here and has been coming ever since. So we come for many different reasons. And this morning we will share that also as we have our water communion ceremony. The combining of the waters is symbolic of our shared faith coming from many different spiritual sources, and it reflects also our UU value of pluralism. Though diverse in culture, experience, and maybe even theology, we embrace our differences and similarities with love, curiosity, and respect. May it be so. I have a couple of announcements this morning. I want to thank Vida and all the people that volunteered to lead the summer discussion series. I did not make them all, but I hear they were all wonderful, and really appreciate everyone stepping forward and giving generously to this community. I also just wanted to point out our new order of service on the back. We used to have the 7 principles, the Unitarian Universalist Association at the last General Assembly. We've talked about this, and Reverend Sue talked about this, has adopted the new shared values. So those are reflected on your order of service with a brief explanation for them, and you might just want to take this program home and look at that more. And also, you may have noticed we are now going to, as a trial, put the hymns that we're going to sing will be listed in reflections and in the reminder for Sunday services. We'd like to really beef up our music and learn more hymns, and so this is an attempt. If you see the hymns there, you can find almost all of them on YouTube. So, all right, now, if you would please join me as we light the chalice. And Reverend Catherine will light it. Words are in your order of service, they're new words. The flame of our chalice this morning is a symbol of the warmth and brightness of our connections. The flame lights our way back together again from our separate summer lives, and it lights our way forward into a new shared ministry with Reverend Catherine and into this new church year of promise and renewal. Thank you. And now please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 131 in the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us.
From Beloveds, welcome to the first service of this congregational year. Today, we celebrate the flow of our lives in the ritual of returning with our water communion. And today, we also recognize where we came from, or our origins, where we are, our current story, and where we hope to go. Let us gather to imagine, vision, and create a future that aligns with our values. As a river starts at an origin point, this is the joyful origin of our ministry. Welcome with all that you are, just as you are, to this congregational year. So today is our water communion, and we're going to move into that ritual now. And if you have water to share, that's wonderful. And if you don't, no worries. There's a pitcher right there. We have some water for you to add to our communal bowl. The bowl starts with water from our previous years, from our previous ceremonies, all the way back to 2006. We are both connected to our ancestors and past while living in this present. Today, we get to add the water for this year to this history. Now, as you add your water, I'm going to ask you to speak one word to the congregation. One word recognizing what this water means to you. It can resonate with your past year. It can celebrate a congregational year starting. It can be a deep movement of soul. Whatever that one word is that feels right for you in this place and this time. So please come up and add the water that symbolizes your year to the collective water of our story. I'm going to add mine, and then we're going to start with the back rows. Come forward. I'm going to invite people to come up the center aisle and return on the sides so we can avoid a traffic jam. And I'm going to thank Michael in advance for some beautiful music that'll be playing as we do this. So today, my word is gratitude. I am grateful to be here with you.
Peace.
Joy.
And it is also always okay to pass.
Can I just forward it?
Home.
Hope.
Fellowship. Settled.
Flowers.
Transcendence.
Picture. Life.
Friendship.
Welcome. Adventure. Excuse me.
Serenity. Serenity.
Courage.
For love.
Swimming.
Memory.
Happiness.
And for those who missed, there was a connection I missed. I apologize.
Hopeful.
Love.
Community.
Orcas.
Stories are beautiful.
Visit.
Truth.
Hope.
Community.
Optimism.
Love.
Transition. Currents.
Kindness.
Comfort.
Kindness.
Welcome.
Has everyone had a chance that wished to? Okay.
Oh, it's okay. Optimism.
Thank you. As these waters have blended, as we've added each piece, so do our stories, our hopes, our dreams, our experiences. As these waters blend, so does the history, the present, and the hopes for the future. May we continue to be and grow as a beloved community.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all. And now is the time in our service we reserve for sharing the joys, the concerns, the sorrows that we may have as we can share openly in this safe and loving community. So if you have something to share, please come forward. Today, continuing our water theme, we will drop pebbles. And I will drop the first one. For all the strife in the world, for war, for famine, for all the horrors that we hear about every day, we hold these in our hearts.
Triple pedal in. Okay. I was looking at the order of service this morning and got to the part where I used to call joys and concerns, and I thought to myself, do I have any joys to share? And I thought, boy, I've got so many. For one thing, I've been a member of the church now for 22 years, and it's been really changed my life. On top of that, I have 6 wonderful children who love me dearly. It makes me feel philosophical. I think about it. Feel about sorry about that. Anyhow, who love me dearly, and of course they love each other, and that's the important part. And on top of that, I have 2 stepchildren who I love as my own. I have everything I wanted. I have a home and the water, all the things they wanted. But to top it off, the Troy McKay gives, I married the most wonderful lady ever. Sorry about this. I never thought it will fill up like this. Anyhow, I married the most wonderful person I ever met. And last month, on August 20th, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. 25 wonderful years. Sorry about filling up.
I think also we have a birthday girl with us today, Linda, right? Happy birthday to Linda.
This is not really a joy or a concern, it's more of an acknowledgement. One of our residents from Heron Point passed last night who was 104, and so she's in my thoughts today. She was a wonderful person.
I just want to express my joy at being back at a place that still feels like home. Thank you.
This is a thank you for being here today. My kids had decided that I needed to move to one of their places in Michigan. And I convinced them that I'd be very happy just to stay here. So, so far, I still live here.
Well, I had a wonderful Sunday afternoon, evening last week. Two of my cousins who were just kids when we used to go see my uncle came at my niece's place, and we sat and we talked for about 6 hours. It was great.
That pebble is for my nephew, John Moran Korstein. I hadn't seen him for 12 years until yesterday. And I'm just so glad I got to spend some time with him.
Do I do this or you? Okay. This pebble is a piggyback on a candle that I lit back in the spring when so many of our grandchildren and our nieces were being accepted to schools and universities. And they were also full of themselves because they were seniors and they had just, all of that. And it was one of gratitude. And now they're at their universities throughout the country, and they're not so full of themselves. They're very humble, and they're a little bit homesick. And so this is a pebble that they may keep a little bit of that hubris as well as some of the humility, and blend the two as they continue their studies for the next 4 years and work to make this world a beautiful place.
I feel I should explain the visit and orcas that were our one word. My elder daughter lives in the Pacific Northwest, and we visited her for a week. I hadn't been out there for about 10 years. She has an app on her phone about the orcas, and so we went to a park, and there they were. We were not on the boat that was following them, a huge ship of whale watchers. But she'd been there for 30 years and she hadn't seen them. Her partner's been there for I don't know how long and he hadn't seen them. So we felt most fortunate that we saw orca fins going by.
I'll drop the last pebble for all those thoughts or joys, concerns, whatever that we may still be holding in our hearts. We have a moment of silence. Blessed be. And now, as we care for each other here today, let us also care for this, our church home, its missions and its programs, by giving as you can, for with your gifts, we are the keepers of the flame. For these gifts generously given, we are grateful. Thank you. And now Connie will lead us in a reading. Is this mic not working well?
Good morning. Our reading today is on page 729 in your gray hymnal. And we're going to alternate from one stanza to the next. Say that again?
Reading 720.
Reading, sorry about that. I'm new to this, folks, so be patient. Okay, reading 729 in the gray hymnal. It's called Ingathering, the Winds of Summer. We're going to start with this half of the congregation with the first stanza, and then we'll go back and forth. You and I and all of us blew about with the winds of summer. Finding rest in the cool stillness of shadows and moving to the slow, heat-struck rhythms which turned the long hours of summer light. Summer is fading backward into memory, and winter waits in snowy brilliance. We have joys and sorrows and hunger to share, questions, things we care about and want to help make better. Today we are together in gladness, once more the special community that we call our church. Thank you.
Beloveds, it is so good to be together today. I heard that in so many of our contributions to our water communion. And I am excited to be joining this community in living this wild and wonderful faith. To join this community during Ingathering, the season of gathering into ourselves, into our communities, and reconnecting to something larger than ourselves and that which immediately surrounds us. Now, what that something larger is, there's as many answers to that as there are people in this room. And honestly, since we're Unitarian Universalists, probably more. If we're unsure, that's fine. We look forward to exploring what calls to your soul. And as we learn and grow and explore, that may change. And I look forward to getting to know you during this week and throughout our ministry. I want to thank Connie for connecting our ingathering to the changing of the seasons and honoring the beautiful transition of summer, fun, and play toward harvest and preparing for the resting months of winter. We are of the world, connected to the world, and the seasons call to our bodies in deep and powerful ways. We have the opportunity to live fully in this one complete moment of the present. Through all the seasons, we can honor the past and plan and imagine and celebrate the future. And we only have one present to live in, and we can live deeply in that moment. Beloveds, will you take a deep breath with me? And again. Celebrating this ingathering, we get to celebrate our returning to this life-saving community, a community that holds us in joy and sorrow. And we know that joy shared is joy multiplied. Scientists call this sympathetic joy. There's a Buddhist ethic for this, mudita, and it emanates from other cultures as well. For me, these points that emerge from multiple cultures, multiple religious traditions, and yes, science, serve as grounding points that are central to Unitarian Universalist theology. However we find there, they represent those universal truths that we can approach from so many different ways, through different cultures, and yet they seem to be universal and arise in multiple places. That also means that to find our theology, and I use the term theology as our ancestors did in what really matters, asking the big questions, right? And we find that theology by being curious and open, and we learn from various cultures. And sympathetic joy is one of those points. When we live in sympathetic joy, or mudita, we are living in alignment with our UU values. So here's where I was going to mention, if you're new, you should look at the order of service for our UU values, but that has already happened. So if you want to look at them again, I love the graphic. I think it's really beautiful. And we look forward to sharing our joy with you. We also know that the world and living is not just joy. We have learned that sorrow shared is sorrow divided. We work together to hold heavy burdens, ease suffering, and witness each other's struggles. UUs are working nationally to protect trans lives, fight for reproductive justice, support and preserve our democracy, and resist oppression and racism. We are stronger together. We are more resilient together. And we can participate in and do this holy work. These connections of joy and power are with all who are here and all who join us. We have a life-giving, life-affirming faith. And these connections also are to those who preceded us, to our ancestors, whether they're biological, inspirational, or communal. And this brings us to that ritual we performed today. We added the water we brought to the water that's been collected in previous years. Our stories and experiences merging with the symbolic river of our community. And if I pause to think about the beginning of our symbolic river, I could go back to the start of water itself, how it emerged from the very rocks of the earth as it cooled to form this planet. That's a beginning. I could go into UU history with the emergence of Unitarian thought in the years after Jesus and before Christianity, in those first several hundred years. We could start with how similar Universalists emerged throughout world religions at various points in time. Maybe we could start with the emergence of the Unitarians and the Universalists from various Protestant Christian traditions. Those are all beginnings. We could also return to the consolidation that created Unitarian Universalism in 1960. It's a formal beginning of this both young and ancient tradition, another beginning. But instead, let's start with the story that Nancy shared, the founding of this congregation in the early 1990s by parents looking for a place to raise their children, where they could live their values authentically. All those who had roles in that origin story, that story resonated strongly with me as I met your search committee for two reasons. First, I had the pleasure to meet one of the founders and who was telling her story. Now, beloveds, when we tell our story, our particular story, it's a tremendous gift and a source of power. It connects us to people at a deep mental and emotional level. Cole Arthur Riley, author of This Here Flesh and Black Liturgies, is a leader in contemplative Christianity. Wrote about the stories of her family, including traumatic experiences of her grandmother. She offered that when we intend to speak to large groups of people, we tend to think we need to speak broadly, generally, so it applies to all. And yet, she found that in the responses to her family stories of dignity, joy, pain, trauma, triumph, and transformation, it was the particularities in the stories where people can see themselves. They see their humanity in the story. It is this that is the power of our stories, our lived stories that connect. Now, if the mention of water coming from the rocks of the earth as the planet formed didn't indicate, I'm pretty sure this one will, so I'm a scientist. And I think that part of that is because of a finding Yuri Hasen, a researcher at Princeton, found, who studies brain-to-brain communication through natural language processing, deep learning computational frameworks, and demonstrated using functional MRIs, was able to produce images of the brain activity that found when we hear stories, not other things, stories, our brain activities, where our brains are active, they start to sync and align. It doesn't happen when we hear other things, but when we hear stories. So have you ever heard we are wired for connection? We can see that now. We can see how we are wired for connection as humanity. Our stories engage reasoning and higher brain functions, and this effect happened across languages, and it was strengthened if there was a shared experience. So this leads to the second reason that the origin story of the congregation resonated strongly for me. Looking for a community to help me raise my children with my values was what drew me to look for Unitarian Universalism 19 years ago. A shared experience. I joined a congregation rather than founding one, and the commitment of the people who helped found this community really resonated with the welcome and the passion I found and was drawn to the community that I joined. That was a strong bend in the flow of the river of my life, and I am grateful that I found this spiritual home, that led to a reawakening of my call to ministry and ultimately brought the river of my life into connection with the river of this community. Other bends in the flow of the river of my life come from my personal origins. I was born in New York to an Irish-American family. I learned to sing folk songs and church songs, and early flow centered our Catholic faith, where my aunts and uncles were lay leaders in the congregation, and my father and I were in the choir. And beloveds, sadly, I must admit, as I shared with the search committee, that no, I cannot belt it out like Bonnie Raitt. I am a choir singer, and I sing songs of power, where we're connecting to the Spirit, and we're not really worried if you're on the high A, right? Songs of performance are wonderful opportunities to partner with and share the talents of others. There are some professional flows too. I worked as a surgical physician assistant, both in civilian hospitals and in the Maryland Army National Guard. I've since retired from military service, but I do volunteer with the Maryland Defense Force. I loved caring for patients and accompanying them through these points in their stories. It was really powerful. And yet I realized I could have more impact and help more people working structurally. And I segued into medical administration, both for the military and now in grants. I've been considering theological school for a while, but the time just wasn't right. Has anyone ever heard of that still small voice inside? Right? It as something to listen to. I think that's another one of those points in our theology. It's referenced by Emerson, the Bible, Quakerism, Carl Jung, even Mahatma Gandhi and more. And mine kept saying, yes, but not yet. Yes, but not yet. And on my last deployment, overlooking a sand dune, after having read Michelle Anderson's The New Jim Crow, the still small voice said, yes, it's time. I began preparations for theological school and became a yoga instructor. And the river of my life made a sharp bend. 5 years at Meadville Lombard Theological School, graduating last year, and completing the initial process that allows me to serve our UU congregations. Now the river of life has brought me here to this community. And I added my water to the water of this water communion ritual for the first time in community. Since water has been here since there was an earth, water holds the stories of all of us, and rituals involving water are common among religious traditions. Water knows we are deeply connected and flows all over the planet. The water from previous years holds the memories of those who aren't with us today, and those who have died, moved away, retired, and those who haven't found our community yet. Water is life, and we are all connected. I look forward to hearing your stories and the bends in your river and the journey that has brought you here during this week as I'm in the area and as we do this ministry together. As we go into our discussion in the week ahead, I find myself wondering, what brought you to this tradition and or this community? And what brings you back week after week? What brings you back to ingathering after ingathering and returning every year? And what is the passion that you want to live out this year? Maybe over the next 10 years. One of my mentors taught me that people tend to way overestimate what can be done in 1 year and way underestimate what can be done in 10, right? So I want to honor that speaking before a group may also not be your thing. And if so, please feel free to coordinate a visit or call on me during one of the block times in reflection. Living out our values with passion is how we honor our Unitarian Universalist ancestors. and particularly in this case, our Universalist ancestors, as we love the hell out of this world. It is an exciting ministry, and it is a ministry that the world needs. It is a ministry that calls us to love our neighbor, even and most especially. The spiritual practice is in loving the neighbors we don't like. When we do that practice love, we see everyone in love, and we see ourselves in everyone we meet. Living and engaging with the voices of many cultures will help us understand our theology, help us find what really matters. When we live from our stories and our passions, when we live our values, beloveds, our heart is in a holy place. And with that, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and tongue, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, when we listen with a loving mind, when we hear our voices in each other's words. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts is within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a And now we have a few minutes here for some discussion, comments. Yes.
Thank you, Reverend Catherine, and welcome. I'm Sydney, and I found this congregation. I moved here 19 years ago to Kent County, not knowing anyone. And I ran off to this quaint, adorable country church with this beautiful cemetery, the stones dating back to the 1600s. Went 2 weeks in a row, and no one said boo to me, looked at me, welcomed me, said anything. And in our paper back then, which was a real community paper, all the churches were listed. In the very bottom corner was UU, and it called itself the Uncommon Denomination. Well, I had never heard of it. And I came here and had the totally opposite reception, warmly welcomed, and I've come back ever since.
Just wanted to say thank you and welcome, and it feels great. It feels wonderful to be here today.
In speaking about our history, and my beloved grandmother, for whom I was named, always sat in the second row in our little congregational church in New Hampshire. Thank you for making me feel here.
Hi, I'm the cat guy. Anyway, for those who don't know, my name's Mark, and the newcomers are certainly, you got to feel at ease here, because the first time I walked in this church, and I've been to several churches trying to find out where I fit in, and I came in here after I promised my higher power that if my cat came home, I would go to church. And I walked in here, and I'd been in other churches and just didn't feel, it didn't want to, it didn't feel right to me. So I came in here and the first day, I mean, it's scary walking in new by yourself. And I don't know if I had legs then or not, but anyway, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I came in here and man, there wasn't one person in here that didn't have a smile on their face and greeted me with just a hug or a handshake or whatever. And I said, this is where I need to be. This is where I'm meant to be. And I've been here ever since, and I love every minute of it, and I love all the people in this room. And anyone that hasn't been here before, got to keep coming back, okay? Thank you.
Mark, I love how you lifted up two things. One, how every service is different, right? So if today's your jam, great. If it wasn't quite your jam, but it was close, come back, try again. That was one of the things I had to learn when I started with Unitarian Universalism. And the other one is that we flip the script, right? Most progressive practices, but Unitarian Universalists in particular, we offer belonging first. Y'all come, right? Then, over time, there may be some behavior things. We talk about covenants and how we are together. And maybe somewhere way down the line, you may believe something, and if you do, great, let us know what it is. But we're probably not going to tell you what it is, right? And that's a real flip of script if you've had for some of us, with other religious experiences.
My first experience with the Unitarian Universalist, I grew up in the Methodist Church, and I was supposed to stay a Methodist forever, I guess. But I went into All Souls, and I was so impressed that it stuck with me. And when I came here and found there was a Unitarian church here, I thought, I'm going to try these folks. And I haven't been disappointed. Thank you.
All Souls is a beautiful congregation. I'm assuming All Souls DC? And you have to check, there's a few of them around, but All Souls DC is actually a really strong piece of our history. So I mentioned some Unitarian history before. Anyone wants to hear about it, happy to talk after service, but we're already a little after 11, so.
I never heard of the Unitarian Church, and so we came down here, and my wife started coming to this church, without me. I was staying home. I kept thinking, what's so great about this? She gets every morning goes over to church. So I accompanied her with her one day, and I thought, like others, this is the place for me. It was so I walked in, like Mark said, people were warm and friendly and engaging. And after coming for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I was invited to become a member, which I did. And in typical Unitarian fashion, I was immediately put on a committee.
Many committees, yes. All right. Okay, thank you for the comments. We can continue conversations with Reverend Catherine over brunch, but we will bring the service.
So I'll transition to closing words, and here I like to come out and talk a little bit, because if we haven't already hit something on reflection, or if your reflection has brought something up, I'll share it here. In this case, I already talked with Mark directly, so we did that part. So, beloveds, let us close, taking a deep breath. And prepare to go out into our larger community, bringing our calm and open hearts, making peace and growing in wholeness, living in integrity with ourselves and all living things, and being fully present to each moment of this one wild, wonderful life. May it be so, beloveds.
And now we'll extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Please join us in the lobby for some brunch and conversation, and have a wonderful week.